Do I need to press? There, it functions. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Melissa Bell. I'm a senior correspondent at CNN, and I'll be moderating this event today, the panel this morning, but also the other one we're having this afternoon on financing. It is a great pleasure to be with you today. Now, as we've already heard, the overarching theme of IFAD's 49th Governing Council is from farm to market, investing with young entrepreneurs. There are, and I was astonished by this figure, 1.3 billion young people in the world today. It is the largest generation in history. Half of them live in rural areas, and IFAD is recognizing that youth are not just the future, but actually the present as well, which is why they've been placed at the center of this particular session this morning. And what you're going to hear are the voices of a number of young entrepreneurs that have been helped, trained, supported by IFAD at the very beginning of their endeavors. And I've had the opportunity to meet a few of them that you're going to see up on stage here today. And they're pretty exceptional. Their stories quite inspirational. And the idea that it is, of course, at their heart and through their work, not just that they make a difference, of course, to their own lives, but to their communities. Now, the title of the center stage event, Young Entrepreneurs at the Heart of Transformation from Vision to Impact. And over the next couple of hours, you're going to be hearing from some of these young leaders from rural areas. It isn't just that they've become successful entrepreneurs in their own right, they become employers, but also, of course, examples and people who transform their communities. They have been helped not just, of course, by the investments of IFAD and your governments, but the private sector and other key partners as well. Not only running their own companies, employing others, and changing their local communities, the ripple effect is obvious. IFAD invests in youth in all of its projects because it recognizes that they are the fundamental actors in driving food security, agri-food systems, and, of course, rural economic growth. Agriculture used to be considered the sort of preserve of older people or older generations. Today they're showing that it isn't just a fallback or something your family did that you joined, but something that you choose as a deliberate career choice to make a difference. Harnessing the potential of young people within those rural communities, the primary engine, of course, for transforming the sector. They are also uniquely positioned to drive new approaches to production, to bring value-added services, digital agriculture, climate-smart practices in a way that older people are not. Now, to ensure that youth perspectives, ideas, and priorities remain central to the Governing Council discussions, there was a pre-Governing Council youth consultation workshop that was held last month, and that brought together nearly 50 young participants, and some of the conclusions and priorities that emerged from that you're going to be hearing from those that are speaking today. Now, our session is split into three parts this morning. This first part, we're going to be hearing from the president of IFAD, Alvaro Lario, from whom you heard a moment ago, Mr. Tony Elumelu, who is the group chair of Heers Hulden and United Bank for Africa, the founder also of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, a family-owned investment company which is committed to improving lives and transforming Africa. We'll be hearing, I hope, about how he finds the time for all of that. But he's also the chairman of the Pan-African Financial Services Group, the United Bank for Africa, which operates in 20 countries. We're going to be hearing from Clara Komolo, who is the founder of Amazing Bee Projects from Malawi. Some of these youth voices I was speaking to you about a moment ago. Didika Fanya, manager at Darai Food Processing Banana Company from India. Morgan Mwanwe, who is the founder of Bahari Haven, a growing social enterprise in Kenya. And again, they're going to be telling you not just about their companies and how they created them, but the way that they're managing to change their local communities in ways that are meaningful and promising. Part two, we're going to be joined by Johan Sadhoff, who is the Parliamentary State Secretary, Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany, and Juan Antonio Rivas, Senior Vice President, Global Head of Sustainable Business Development at OFI. Again, there's going to be a few youth voices within that panel. Cecilia Sejika Mwajai, who is the Administrative Manager of the Bosque de la Nuevas Association from Peru, and she will correct my pronunciation in a moment. Ms. Sabrina Ounes Faiza, who is the founder and manager of Desert Fish in Algeria. Mr. Hubert Steffi Chuguia, who is the founder of Family Green Corporation in Cameroon. And in the third section, we're going to be hearing from more young entrepreneurs, and who will be joining in some of those calls to action that were agreed at the pre-Governing Council Youth Consultation. They are Ms. Lakmini Wera-Kodi, who's the founder and managing director of Lak Nature International in Sri Lanka, Mr. Mamadou Diop, the program officer, Youth and Conseil National de Concertation et Coopération des Ruraux in Senegal, and Ms. Zara Perez, the secretary of the Cobroba Lupe Oversight Committee, which is part of the Inclusive and Resilient Pro-Rural program in the Dominican Republic. A remarkable variety of voices with a remarkable variety of experiences and insights. Now, you're also going to have the opportunity to ask any questions at some point that you may have. So if anything occurs to you over the course of the discussions, do write it down, and I hope that we're able to get to you a little later on. To begin with, though, let me call for our first panel on stage the IFAD President, Mr. Alvaro Lario, Mr. Tony Elumelu, Clara Didiki, and Morgan. And while they join me, do please enjoy this video.
Yo les digo que sí hay futuro en el campo. Me tomo a mí como ejemplo. Yo soy un joven emprendedor. Soy víctima del conflicto armado y no tenía tantos recursos. Gracias al apoyo de FIDA, vi la manera de poder emprender y salir adelante.
Joni's journey reflects a powerful truth. Rural areas hold opportunity, and youth are central to unlocking it. Across the world, rural youth are already shaping today's food systems. They are producers, entrepreneurs, and leaders. As digital natives, young people are uniquely positioned to adopt new technology, modernize agriculture, and accelerate innovation. Their ideas and energy are essential to building productive, resilient, and vibrant rural communities. Today, nearly 89% of the world's youth live in developing countries. This demographic reality presents one of the greatest opportunities of our time. With the right investments and opportunities, young women and men can become lead actors in transforming food systems.
World population is expected to increase significantly from the 8 billion people today to probably around 10 billion people by 2050. So if we don't bring youth into agriculture, it's going to be hard to respond to the growing demand for food and the growing need for food security globally.
This is why youth is a strategic priority for IFAD. IFAD supports rural young people across the entire agricultural value chain, guided by its 3E approach: employment, entrepreneurship, and empowerment. Through existing and future projects, IFAD promotes youth inclusion by expanding access to vocational training, job placement, business development services, and finance. Our approach emphasizes green and digital opportunities.
लेकिन ये है कि मैं ये चाहती थी कि मैं कंप्यूटर कोर्स करूं, कंप्यूटर चलाने का मुझे बहुत शौक़ था, ज़्यादातर टाइपिंग का मुझे बहुत शौक़ था। इसलिए कंप्यूटर आने के बाद मेरा बिजनेस बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया। इतनी रात में थी कुछ मैंने जमा करके रखी थी, मैंने अपने वाला साहब को दिया, तो मेरे वाला साहब में इसमें कुछ रकम ऐड करके तो एक घर लिया है।
ushaka kubimenya ko abantu bazi ngo guhinga no gusa nabi kandi ushobora guhinga wibereye no mu biro kubera hari technology turimo kugerageza nkuko mu bihugu by'ibirayi bajya babigenza abantu bafite ubuhinzi buteye imbere ku buryo ubasha kumenya information zose ziri mu murima.
Adelaide joined IFAD's flagship Agribusiness Hubs program. Applying the 3E approach across 9 African countries, the Agribusiness Hubs provide tailored support, including subsidized education, startup coaching, and blended financing, enabling young entrepreneurs to build viable, competitive agribusinesses. The impact is transformative. Household food security improved by 20%. Annual incomes increased by 48%. The program exceeded expectations, generating more than 59,000 decent jobs and supporting the creation of over 8,000 youth-led businesses.
The AgriHub program overachieved in terms of jobs created, in terms of gender empowerment, direct jobs, indirect jobs. We built a mechanism that's scalable now, and I think that's an important result.
These results have driven broader change. With strong government engagement, youth-focused components are now integrated across IFAD's portfolio. Today, more than half of IFAD's active projects across 90 countries are youth-sensitive, with nearly 20 million rural young people expected to benefit.
About 60% of IFAD's portfolio today is considered youth sensitive, and it's becoming a priority that IFAD wants to elevate further and is aiming to do so in the IFAD 14 replenishment.
By investing in rural youth, we are investing in resilience, innovation, and long-term food security. Together, we are empowering the next generation to transform agriculture. The future of rural development is young, and it begins now.
Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, we have the opportunity of hearing directly from some of those youth voices, and we're delighted because, as I told you a moment ago, they're pretty inspirational stories, and so that we can move on then to the points that you'll be raising with our guests on the panel today. In a minute, I'd love for each of you to give an idea of who you are and what you've done. Clara, to you first.
My name is Clara Kamlomo from Malawi. My journey was inspired by unemployment. I had to find something for myself, and then I chose agriculture. And with IFAD support, I get the skills to establish Amazing Bee Projects, which is an organization that works towards equipping young people, women, with improved agriculture skills. So far at Amazing Bee Projects, we are focusing on production, commercialization, as well as capacity building. Now we've employed 5 permanent workers, and we hire 30 to 50 depending on the workload. We've offered over 16,000 youth trainings through our online trainings, and 100 of them from IFAD supported integrated agribusiness hub. And now we are in the process of registering under TVET to become a TVET training entrepreneur center so that the youth are employable.
As we were mentioning, ripple effects, and I think it's a classic example. Like, many women are also at the heart of what you've done in Sri Lanka. If you could tell us about that.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lakmini Virakkadi from Sri Lanka. So in 2019, we have a main challenge to post-harvest losses, mainly in the fruits and vegetables. This is inspired me to start my own business as Luck Nature International to manufacturing value-added food products. In our company, work with the women and rural farmers, 500, and mainly we are create job opportunities and farming to them, earn income for their families. And today we are both directly and indirectly exporting 15 countries. And IFAD help us to scale up our business from local stage to international market. So in future, we are planning to go more in the global market with our healthy vegan value-added food products. So we are invited to join with Luck Nature to unlock the goodness of nature. Thank you.
Morgan, to you now. In a minute or so, what you've done.
Thank you. My name is Morgan Mwamuye, founder of Bahari Haven, a youth-led agribusiness based in Kilifi, coastal Kenya. My journey into the agri-food systems began after I got done with the university. I didn't find it easy or quite as every other youth to get a job after school. So through IFAD's advertisement of the agribusiness hub, I got an opportunity to intern at a company that also adds value to raw products at the coastal of Kenya. Throughout that moment or that time, I learned from farming into logistics, into processing, packaging, marketing, and even sales. This changed my whole perspective about agriculture from just survival into opportunity. From then thereafter, I went on and became the operations manager at the site I was working at, grew from there, and finally founded or opened my own Bahari Haven, which as of now, we employ rural youth and women as we add value to coconuts. Yeah, thank you.
Well done, extraordinary. So, as we mentioned a moment ago, there was this consultation process. These are some of the faces of modern agriculture and success stories and entrepreneurship in the field. But there was this meeting with many more, and some of the themes and questions emerged that you're now going to put to the president of IFAD and to Tony. First to you, Clara, your question.
My question is, what commitments and accountability mechanisms can governments, private sector, and employers and development partners, including IFAD and the Tony Elumelu Foundation, put in place to deliver safe, fair, and decent jobs for the youth?
First to you, Mr. President.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with all entrepreneurs. I think Tony's also an entrepreneur. I'm the only one who's not an entrepreneur, but it's clearly that this is exactly the type of, I would say, needs when we listen to them talking about what are the market needs, what are the market gaps that they're trying to fill. This is obviously the entrepreneurial spirit that we are looking for. Governments or multilateral institutions like IFAD obviously can provide the, I would say, the enabling environment as well as partially the de-risking mechanisms or the ability of co-finance with them. But I think it's very difficult to make this happen in reality. We know that in developed economies, entrepreneurs obviously also struggle and many companies fail. But here we have a lot of young people willing to take the risks, which is what entrepreneurship is about, and to fill in the gaps. We have listened about capacity building, about adding value in terms of the raw value chain, in terms of also post-harvest losses. These are the market failures that we really need more experiences. And IFAD is ready, obviously, to commit to continue providing the capacity building, the financing, the access to the resources, and working with the government, which I think is the most important part, on making the enabling conditions to really make many of these businesses viable.
Tony Elumelu, the same question to you.
First is, let me congratulate IFAD and my good friend here for putting this together and helping to amplify the need to prioritize rural economies and agriculture, which is very critical for advancement of humanity. And let me say also that I'm happy to be in Italy. It's a country of entrepreneurs and a country where young people have to survive and succeed, just like in Africa. And I'm very impressed by the future of Africa is here on this panel. I like the confidence and the accomplishments you guys have made. And congrats, well done too. So for me, I like to approach your question from a practical perspective, because at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, this is what we do every day. We founded the Tony Elumelu Foundation 15 years ago, and I'm happy to say that to date we have supported over 24,000 young African men and women, each one given a non-refundable seed capital of $5,000, and trained for 12 weeks, and mentors appointed for them, etc. Out of this, about 21% of these entrepreneurs are in the agri-business and agricultural space. And out of about 5,400 people benefited from this program, and they are invested in agriculture and businesses. And out of the 55% of them are women, females, okay? And we like that because we've seen that empowering women is like empowering communities, nations, etc. And they succeed. And it's not by chance that we have two of our panelists here, women. And what we have seen, the people we have supported, is that they have helped to create jobs for people on the continent. These 5,000 plus have created about 480,000 jobs on the continent. They've contributed significant revenue growth in the economy. But why are they succeeding? To me, they are not succeeding just because of the non-refundable seed capital we gave to them. They are succeeding because progressively the operating environment is gradually improving. I want to commend IFAD for the awareness and the role you play in helping to create infrastructure that is critical, and also for helping to scale value chain businesses, etc., in the communities. We believe that we need to see progressively greater collaboration and cooperation between government, private sector, especially in Africa, to help catalyze more transformation in rural economies, more transformation in agriculture, so that we can collectively increase food production. Food security is critical for advancement of societies. And that is why your question is pertinent, and we need to collaborate more to make the rural economies attractive. We need to collaborate more to make agriculture, sexy and attractive. And we think that the young ones are embracing this, but they need more support from all of us.
I think that's a fascinating point, the idea of the changing faces and the youth of it, making it also something much more dynamic and attractive. Lakmini, you also had a question.
Yes, thank you. My question is, as green and digital transitions, including AI, reshape labor markets, new jobs are emerging while others are disappearing. How can policies and programs use labor market intelligence to anticipate this shift, ensure that the jobs created are decent, safe, and fair, and provide transition support or safety nets for rural youth whose livelihood are disrupted by climate change or automation?
If you'd like the answer to the question first, Tony.
I don't think I heard very well. If you can just summarize the questions again, please.
Yes, I asked from the green and digital transition, including AI reshape labor markets. And new jobs are emerging, how to AI reshape and disappearance, and how to create job opportunities.
I think in the area of employment, I think your question, digital revolution, how it's affecting or helping to create more employment in the workplace.
Yeah.
No, I think that this is very critical to a message I carry. And my message is that access to electricity is very critical for economic development and transformation. We cannot talk about AI without improvement in electricity. Africa, for instance, is a continent of about 1.34 billion people. 60% of our population is under the age of 25. So this is a digital native population. But unfortunately, access to electricity is a challenge. And where you have digital connectivity issues, poor access to electricity, huge energy poverty and deficit, there's a limit to how much these young people can embrace technology. The world we live in today, technology is critical for almost everything. My concern is, while yes, it helps in so many ways to create employment, but a group of people are losing out in the digital revolution because of lack of access to electricity. So digital advancement will help to create a new kind of job. I see some of the people who support the Tony Elumelu Foundation. They make money from digital engagement, commerce. A lot. Is totally amazing. For YouTube now, there's so many people just give people access to electricity and they will take up, they do well. So yes, digital advancement is good for job creation. On the contrary, people think it will lead to job elimination, but I think it would lead to more job creation. However, we need to have that tool, that infrastructure, that access to electricity so that our young ones can advance their digital creativity, technology, innovation. Without that, we don't make progress.
It's a great point, the question of infrastructure and allowing that kind of access with then all of the potential that it has. To you, Mr. President, your view of that question of digital transformation.
So I would say, in addition to what Tony was mentioning on access to electricity, access to digital public infrastructure is also something that we're seeing that is creating even more of a divide in many countries. And clearly access to internet, you also need access to digital public infrastructure, which is very key, which also relates to energy, which relates many times also to electricity. But I think in order to be able to picture or to have jobs that are going beyond on-farm, and some of the entrepreneurs here mentioned about commercialization, storage, distribution, exporting, you also need to have that capacity or that access to those resources where there are digital, electricity, commerce online, but for all of that you need to really have the access. And I think what we're seeing is that access is not there for many of the young. It's about skills, but it's about access to electricity, access to machinery, access to finance, access to the ability of infrastructure in order to commercialize. So all of that is also missing. When we talk about food systems, we focus a lot on food production, but there's lots of jobs, as we have heard, also along the entire value chain that could be and are attractive to the young generation, and which are also higher added value jobs.
And critical for the kind of transformations that we're discussing. Morgan, to your question.
Yes, I do. Thank you. My question is, what measures can governments, financial institutions, private sectors, and development partners, including IFAD, take to support vulnerable youth in accessing finance, accounting for their needs? Example, the culturally appropriate and accessible blended finance windows for indigenous youth.
Mr. President, perhaps.
Yes, so probably, and you have been a participant in one of our youth agribusiness hubs, one of the perhaps missing links that we are realizing and trying to also address is the fact that we build the skills, we teach, we bring perhaps some access to the first initial capital, as also Tony was mentioned, but then there's not always a connection to the rest of the potential access to capital, where it's venture capital, where it's financial institutions. There's a missing link there in order to have that access to finance once you have the skills and you have understood also the market gaps. And this is something that IFAD, being a financial institution, needs to also try to address, how to connect many of these hubs once we are building the skills, the capacity, the knowledge to the access to finance, to the next level of finance. And this is something that with local financial institutions, public development banks, or institutions such as IFAD have to focus on at that level. I think there's enough financing in terms of the bigger multilateral development banks, on trade finance, on funding big agribusinesses. The financing is there, even from the private sector. I think that missing middle, or that connection to that capital at that level, is what we need to focus on trying to work with the government and the local private sector on how to provide it.
And similarly to you.
Let me just add to what he has, I mean, the issue, all the things he said, I totally agree with him. And your question is pertinent, and I understand. I wear a hat of being the chairman of a United Bank for Africa that operates in so many countries. But the point, they're not bought. I want to say that capital is very important for entrepreneurs, especially when you're taking off. However, there are other critical factors also. You know, business education is as important as access to capital. Because oftentimes, people get capital, they think capital is the only thing you need to have. And you have capital and they mismanage it. So what I always tell people when I mentor young entrepreneurs is, access to capital is important because it helps you to prove your concept and idea. But equally important, if not even more important, is when you finally have that capital, what do you do with it? Yes. So as we talk of access to finance, which is spoken about very well, we need to also talk about business education. We need to talk about hand-holding and mentorship, knowing how to navigate, because business world is not a linear world. It's up and down. And so you have capital, you start, you run into a problem. Who do you talk to in that difficult moment to counsel you, to talk to you, etc.? You need to have mentors, and also the government, which is a critical point. You talked about collaboration, and you made the point too. We need to build an environment that lends itself, that supports young entrepreneurs to succeed. We talked about electricity before. We need to make sure that the environment is enabled, and that's where IFAD, I need to commend them again in all the efforts they make, pulling partners together so that collectively, that's why I'm here, for instance, so that collectively all of us can create the right ecosystem and enabling environment that will allow our young entrepreneurs to succeed. Because if our youth succeed, we are creating a better future for ourselves. We're helping to scale prosperity. We're helping to address poverty issue. We're helping to create employment. In Africa, for instance, in 2030, over 500 million people will enter the job market. We don't have the capacity to absorb them. So we need to make sure that access to finance is available, operating environment is available, the entrepreneurs know that their success is not just success for self, it's success for communities, for the entire continent. Then collectively we can address it. But yes, access to capital could be seen as daunting as an issue, but with the blended finance approach, with what some of us are doing, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, my wife and I endowed with $100 million just to support young Africans, to give them the opportunity to do well in life. Because I was telling Melissa, I'm a product of luck. And it's not about how much we have in our bank account. It's about the impact we create, about the happiness we spread, about what we use that wealth to do in our lifetime in helping to catalyze more prosperity. That's critical. So my message to entrepreneurs is capital is important, but it's not everything. Be disciplined, be hardworking, learn to manage capital when you get it so that others who are coming behind you, if you handle your capital well, if it's funded by IFAD or by development financial institutions or by banks, they'll be encouraged to support more people. Thank you.
Fascinating. I mean, one of my questions to Tony earlier was how you find the time to sleep, actually, with everything you do. But to you, Mr. President, now you've been talking just a moment ago very eloquently about the question of ecosystems. There's capital, but then there's the training, there's the ecosystem that allows entrepreneurs like these to thrive, to succeed, to build what they've built. You have questions for them, since it's an ecosystem in which you all belong and through which you thrive together.
Well, thank you. Yes, I would like to ask the three of them, I mean, what are the biggest barriers or challenges that you have to face in your business, and what would help from institutions such as IFAD or from the government to try to support or to surmount some of those challenges?
Perhaps to you, Clara, first.
One of the main challenges is investment in infrastructure. I'll give an example of myself, my business, and I loved it when you brought the issue to do with electricity. I applied electricity 5 years ago and I still don't have it. And this is hindering our processes in our project, in our business. Because if we had electricity for now, we could be growing our processing business. We could be having irrigation systems that are running 24/7, and that will increase the production and lead to us employing a lot of young people to join us in the agriculture sector. And the other issue is access to affordable financing. Someone could say the loans are there, the opportunities for a young person like myself to get the money is there, but is the system or the setup for me as a young person to have access to that money favorable for me as a young person? Are the interest rates that are attached to the loans payable by a young person like myself? Why are the policies and why are the interest rates attached to a loan to a young person similar as to the one who has been learning business for 50 years? So I need to be in a certain space where I am handled as a young person. I am given opportunities to thrive as a young person. And another big issue has been the market. The market system. We are good at production. We are training others. Where am I going to sell? So we need to have guaranteed about the market. Where is the market that is going to support our value addition system? And also we need to be helped to move from just production to processing and to different areas, value chains in the agriculture system, which is processing, value addition, exporting, as well as more agribusiness services. And I bet this is going to help me to scale up and even employ other more young people.
Let me to you, to the question just asked there by Mr. President.
Yes, thank you for the question. So I will explain it mainly in the 3 points. So one is the access to patient and youth-friendly finance, because of the most of the startups like youth has a facing challenge for the initial investment, and they are facing very difficulties to find initial investment because very difficult procedure for some bank loans or an investor, because need to youth in the startup level need to ready for the investment. Then the main thing is invest for the finance, and also they want to some mentorship to how to manage these finance also. And we can arrange some flexible and also some friendly financial systems to start up in the youth. Then they can get your first steps to start their own business. And the second point is simplify and predictable regulation pathways. Because when we go for mainly for the international markets, we have different type of regulations, certification process, and different type of things. So when we, in the startup level and in the stage wise they are developing, so we can introduce in some simplified and some quality measures also there, and introducing some simplified procedures to go for the international market. It is, I think, very benefit to the small scale entrepreneurs to go for the international market, I think. And the third one is continuous technical and market support beyond the startup level, because most of the startups like initial stage, they are growing and in the initial stage, but in their growth stage, sometimes they are in the slow down their business and something like that. But we want to mentoring and some technical support and capacity building, so the beyond the startup level, I think better to in the startup companies go for the large scale, convert to the large scale companies. Thank you.
Fascinating, and maybe we'll come back to that in a moment, Mr. President. The question of longevity and long-term support to help as they transition from startups into something older, maybe. Morgan, to you, to the answer, your answer.
Thank you, Melissa. Mr. President, from experience, youth don't lack ideas, and the ideas are not a barrier anymore. We are continuously and increasingly learning more skills and putting our efforts towards new sectors, including agriculture. However, there are other barriers which we could discuss and also put up in these kind of conversations, but then they never reach down or trickle down to the ruralities. I'm talking about having one same policy that runs from SMEs and also larger companies. Looking at us who are starting, startup like us, and you're putting the same policies with a company which has been around for over 20 years, big and large, which exports, and us who are doing local markets, meaning it would be difficult for us to first enter into the sector, because now we'll have to pay a lot of charges for certification and other policies and regulatory charges. Number two is the lack or limited access to productive assets. I'm talking about processing infrastructure. When we talk about processing infrastructure, we do not want the organization and governments to give one by one each other person a machine or mechanization for their companies. We could share. That is why we would like the organizations and government to invest more in rural shared infrastructure. Because once you invest in that, this does not become a barrier anymore. We are 9 of us here, youth from all over the world. But in the short period of time we've been working together, we've seen that we can all work together and support each other in preparation for this. So therefore, when we invest in these shared infrastructures in the villages, on the ruralities, then this won't be a barrier anymore. Yeah, I think that's
fascinating. I would love, perhaps, Alvaro Lario, if you'd like to respond to some of what we've just heard. One of the things that struck me is how all of you come from such different parts of the world, but so many of the problematics are the same, which must be at the heart of how you help.
Yeah, I think the challenges that we see worldwide are very similar in the sense of the, I would say, the lack of access, the regulatory environment, the capital beyond the initial investment, how to support the infrastructure side. I think that's why when we talk about food systems, many of the conversations, especially in here in Rome, we focus on the food production, but I think it goes well beyond that. I think it's obviously a sector that is very complex. It takes infrastructure, energy, water, many different components, finance, insurance, and that's, if we want to make viable business, when we talk about attracting the private sector, this is the private sector. These are the challenges we need to clearly tackle.
100%, and you're in a unique position to be able to help do that. Tony Elumelu, I'd love you to ask also now your question of our young leaders here.
Okay, but before my question, maybe let me comment a bit
Please.
on what they said, because it's quite interesting, really, as the President said. All three is about infrastructure, it's about finance, it's about regulatory environment. I think from my experience, what I do, based on what I've observed, is that I spend quite some time on advocacy. I spend quite some time discussing, engaging with governments, because to a large extent, most of the things they've said here, most of the things have to be provided by government. Regulatory issue is government. Issue of creating infrastructure, improvement in access to electricity is government directly or indirectly, because if government will create the right environment, private sector will go in and provide the electricity, but create the right environment. So government has a role to play there. Issue of finance, you know, the commercial bank, I wear a commercial bank in heart. There's a limit to what they can do in providing the kind of risk capital that SMEs or entrepreneurs need. That is one of the reasons I created the Tony Elumelu Foundation, because I felt the $5,000 we can give out easily to an individual in a non-refundable fashion, a bank can't. It will go through rigorous processes, because a bank has to have collateral, source of repayment, and on. If you don't do that, we have different BAL 2, BAL 3, there's a charge on the bank's capital. But people don't understand this. So oftentimes they blame financial institutions. But the regulatory environment is stifling. It would not allow banks provide the kind of money. So that's why I felt, you know what, why don't I just, on my own, do something to support the entrepreneurs? Because I know they need assets. But government also, and that's why most governments set up development financial institutions. But then you go to some development financial institution, they will ask for an arm and a leg. Then you start wondering, how would these young entrepreneurs provide this collateral? There's a reason government set this up, to help provide that kind of capital that you need to take off. So I empathize and I identify with the frustration and stress of young people across the world in trade. But some economies have done it better than others. Some governments have done it better than others. So I take to advocacy. I pray to government, create the enabling environment, support the young entrepreneurs. And indeed, in some countries, it's working. In Nigeria, for instance, the new tax law in Nigeria is now very, to a large extent, supportive of small and medium-scale enterprises that are starting out. There are some areas where, in some countries, where regulatory environment, like this just spoke now, can be quite stifling. We need to engage government. IFAD has a role to play, all of us, United Nations, ministers, government people, to say what is good for our small-scale enterprises is good for the economy.
100%.
Economies, jobs in economies are created by small and medium-scale enterprises. We need to have our youth engaged. So if we don't support and prioritize the small, medium-scale enterprises, we will continue to have acute unemployment issues. We need to create infrastructure for people. So my time for question, let's take it that I've used my time, but I just thought I should amplify, because These are real frustrations, and these are things we must do to move the needle. These are things we must do to eradicate poverty, create an inclusive economy, stem migration issues, and stem extremism. We need to have our young ones, any and every part of the world, optimally engaged. And the road to that engagement is each and every one of us playing the role that we need to play. Government, create the enabling environment, provide infrastructure. Private sector, handhold, support the value system, the value chain, and support the young ones. Mentor, and those who are endowed, support them with your endowment, and development finance, development institutions. Let's work together collaboratively to create a more conducive operating environment for entrepreneurs to succeed. Thank you.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, all of you, for taking part in this panel, for your voices, your questions, your experiences, the cleverness of what you've done, and to both of you for sharing with us those insights on what is remarkably similar in so many different parts of the world and in terms of the challenges faced. Thank you very much indeed to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, please. Now we're going to have our second panel in just a moment, but we're going to hear from another couple of voices in the meantime who've benefited from IFAD's help. Now, for our second panel, delighted to introduce this next panel. We have with us His Excellency Johann Saathoff, who's the Parliamentary State Secretary for the Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development in Germany, Juan Antonio Rivas, Senior Vice President, Global Head, Sustainable Business Development, OFI. And again, more of our youth voices. We have Cecilia Sejekam Wajai, who's the Administrative Manager of the Bosque Las Nuvas Association from Peru. It means woman. I have learned that today, Novas. We also have Ms. Sabrina Unis Faiza, who's the founder and manager of Desert Fish Algeria. We're delighted to have you on the panel. As we also have Monsieur Hubert Sefi Chigua, who's the founder of Family Green Corporation in Cameroon. And we are delighted to have you all on this panel today. Maybe we start with Cecilia. Each of you are going to give us an idea in a minute of what you've done, of who you are. Cecilia, to you first.
Gracias. En primer lugar, buenos días con todos. Mi nombre es Cecilia Sejekambwaje. Vengo de una comunidad nativa indígena llamado Champuyacu de la Amazonía peruana. Soy socia y creadora y administradora de la organización Bosque de las Nuvas. Nuvas significa mujer en español. La asociación está conformada por 70 mujeres que trabajan, rescatan, siembran y cosechan las plantas medicinales, que en la actualidad tenemos 2 productos, infusiones con nombre Numa. Gracias también hemos implementado con el proyecto Avanza Rural porque se necesitaba producir más infusiones y por eso gracias a ese proyecto hemos incrementado la producción. En la actualidad, como dije, contamos con 2 infusiones que se llama jengibre y clavo vasca. Vendemos a nivel local y regional y nacional también, y a veces internacional, que las personas que nos visitan en la comunidad nativa Champuyacu. Gracias.
Sabrina, an idea of what you've done and who you are.
Sure. So thank you for the invitation and thank you for hosting us. To start, my name is Sabrina Unis. I'm a consultant engineer and founder of Desert Fish, which is a smart aquaponic farm in the desert of Algeria. We are IFAD support. We are laureate of the IFAD supported program, where we benefit from training, finance, and collaboration with governmental and public sector in the field of aquaponic, and which is the combination of aquaculture and hydroponic, where we optimize lands, water, and time to produce tilapia fish and crops such as lettuce and cherry tomatoes. Alongside our project, we also provide data-driven decision-making for farmers and decision-makers for better decision due to all this climate change phenomena and problems. New technologies help us make the better decisions in shorter time to avoid risks and catastrophes.
It's an extraordinary experience that you've had. You're an engineer by training.
Exactly. I'm a coastal engineer and landscape manager.
As you are, Hubert, this was your background. You were going to be an engineer and not head back to agriculture at all. Tell us what happened and why.
Ok, merci, bonjour tout le monde. Moi, c'est Hubert Chugua, ingénieur pétrolier de formation et reconverti en entrepreneur vert au Cameroun, fondateur de Family Green Corporation. Et ma reconversion est née sur le terrain, aux côtés des petits agriculteurs qui sont souvent confrontés à des problèmes de dégradation de sol, également des baisses de rendement de leur culture, des incertitudes climatiques. Donc, avec Family Green Corporation, depuis 2016, nous travaillons directement aux côtés de ces petits agriculteurs pour développer des solutions concrètes et accessibles telles que des biointrants, des bioénergies issues des déchets agricoles et également des pratiques agroécologiques. Avec le soutien du FIDA et Procassu, à travers le programme Agri-Business Hub, nous avons pu améliorer notre produit et appuyer aujourd'hui plus de 500 agriculteurs et recruter 7 jeunes en milieu rural. Notre vision est claire, soutenir des systèmes agroalimentaires où les jeunes producteurs ou bien des petits producteurs et les jeunes ne sont plus considérés comme des simples producteurs, mais des acteurs clés de l'économie, également qui peuvent apporter du changement et vivre dignement de leur travail. Merci.
Et le faire rayonner, c'est fascinant. Before we move on to questions to both of you, and I think you, with your varied experience, will be able to answer our panelists' questions about the role of youth. But perhaps, first of all, if I could just get you, Johann Sandhoff, to tell us a little bit about Germany's implication when it comes to youth and specifically through BMZ. Just give us an idea of that, your implication and why.
Yeah, I mean, Germany's biggest problem is that we have a lack of resources. We have no rare earths or something like that. We have no oil, no gas, no everything. Our resources in the head of the people, and especially in the head of young people. So that's why the German government is very much committed in promoting young people as good as we can. But to be honest, when I look in the parliament, I would say there could even be more young people doing the decisions in the parliament too. So there's always a room for improvement, I would say, so everywhere in the world. But I mean, in Germany, we recognize that it's very important to find a collaborative way in catching up the ideas of the young people and working together with the experiences of the elder ones.
Yes. I'd like each of you then to put your questions that you may have. Perhaps Cecilia first.
¿Cómo pueden los gobiernos, el sector privado y los socios para el desarrollo, garantizar que los jóvenes no sean tratados únicamente como beneficiarios de programas de empleo y emprendimiento, sino como co-creadores de oportunidades de trabajo digno.
Perhaps Juan Antonio Rivas, you could maybe answer that first.
Thank you very much. I would answer in Spanish. I'm from Colombia, so a neighbor, but I will answer in English. So the word beneficiaries maybe doesn't have the right connotation. Obviously, a company like ours does not see youth as beneficiaries, but as very critical stakeholders. They're very critical stakeholders because basically our future depends on them. Our business is to buy, to process, to do logistics, to sell to our customers agricultural products and ingredients and solutions, and we need the supply for the future, and the supply for the future will come from the youth of today. So they are very critical stakeholders. In terms of employment, because employment is one of the points, we are a major employer in many of the countries where we are present, an employer in rural communities as well, and I think that's an important role to play. We also develop internship programs. We have one that we are about to start with the MasterCard Foundation that is very involved in Africa and in employment and youth topics. And we're very proud of that because, as was mentioned before, the mentorship and the training and providing experiences to youth, I think is very important. Again, as I said, it's very key to our supply chain. It's not beneficiaries, it's a partner.
I think it's a fascinating distinction, actually, to look at what we're talking about, which is the youth, of course, as stakeholders rather than beneficiaries, and it's a perfect starting point. But to you, to your response to Cecilia's question, if you would.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having the unique opportunity to have a discussion with you and with sharing our views together. It's a very special event for me, and your spirit and your creativity and your ability to think out of the box is highly appreciated and needed in the world. And I mean, when I hear your experiences in running your businesses, I was thinking about how was it 2 decades ago, and I met young people doing businesses. They were only caring for themselves, to make as much money as it is possible, and didn't care about anything else. And you are running completely different businesses. You are not caring about yourself. You're caring about the future, about the world. And I mean, that's what it's all about. That's the reason why I became a politician. I wanted to provide a better future for my children, but not only for my children, for all children of all parents in the world. So that's very inspiring for us. That's the reason why we are engaged in the IFAD agriculture, integrated agribusiness hubs, and we saw the results, 60,000, up to 60,000 jobs, more than 8,000 companies are there with lots of employees. So, I mean, that's a huge success. And it's not about training centers at all. It's about having business fairs, for example. It's about the mentorship, as we have heard before, which is very important. And of course, the internships, which is important in the political sector as well.
I think it's an excellent point, and I hadn't really thought about it in those terms. But when I think back to when I met all of you earlier, it's remarkable how each of you talked about the difference you were making, not the money you were making. It's remarkable. I wonder if that isn't a generational shift as well. Sabrina, to your question, to both, please.
So my question would be as follows. How can policy and programs move beyond startup support to systematically integrate youth-led enterprise into national and international value chain throughout public and private partnership and policy invested?
Perhaps, Johan.
Yes, that's an excellent question, which is not easy to answer, I would say. So what is the biggest need? It's the willingness of the elder, experienced people to share power and responsibility. And if it comes to, when I talk to other politicians all over the world, I always recognize, yeah, it's important to work with young people together. It's important to work with women and with people with disabilities and so on and so on. But when it comes to how do you do it? Then I see there's a lack of willingness of sharing power. And it's not only for the elder people to give power to the younger people, it's to demand it too. I see the situation in Germany that lots of young people are shy and don't really say what they want, and I think that's very important to address, to say what you want. And in my opinion, it's very important to have such youth advisory councils, for example, and you don't need elder people or others. You could just implement an advisory council for youth with all your experience you share already. Before I became an MP, I was mayor of my hometown, and we had a big discussion about how can we support the point of view of even the elder people, and we implemented a youth council, and we learned so much about their point of view, about their view how the municipality will develop in the next decades. And of course, they thought about the main challenges like climate change, how will it affect us, what does it mean to our business sector, and so on and so on. So it's a big resource, in my opinion, to combine it, the meaning of the youth in formalized youth councils, for example. I mean, the question is, for my ministry, of highly relevance. It's very important for us. So next month we are planning an event which is called United for Youth, Social Partners for Jobs in Africa, which means we want to combine it, we want to bring it to the people who have the power to make sure that they know that they would not react properly on resources of the youth people if they don't combine it with their own measures.
I wonder if we could get your response to Sabrina's question as well.
Yes, I think how can different actors intervene or work together really starts with deep conviction and deep commitment. Our company has a purpose, like many companies, that is very much related to, or the purpose is to be the change for good food and a healthy future, and obviously all of those terms involve youth. And it's important to have them. But as I said before, it's not only because of the conviction and the purpose, but it's also the business imperative. So we see it as a long-term business imperative for us. Now, the question is how? How can we drive change, or how can we contribute to drive change? And in our activity, what comes naturally to us is to work in our supply chains, with our farmers, but that obviously includes the communities where we operate. What do we do there? We bring capabilities, we form farmer groups, we bring them training, we bring vocational training, financial literacy training, entrepreneurship training, etc., to our farmers and the communities, and I think that's very critical to build the type of capacity that is needed. The key role that we play is market access. I think that has been mentioned before as a challenge. And obviously that's what we do. We connect markets, we connect our supply with the customers and consumers that are there. And I think that's a very important role and it's our natural role, if you want. It's the one that we play naturally, but we understand the responsibility we have with the farmers and the communities, and obviously that includes youth as a business imperative.
Thank you. Yes, business imperative. It's a really interesting point as well. It is about doing things as well as in one's interest, and this involves that. Hubert, I'd love you to put your question as well to our panelists, please.
Oh, ok, Melissa. La question est la suivante. Quelles mesures les autorités locales, nationales et le secteur privé, la société civile et les acteurs de développement peuvent-ils prendre pour donner la priorité à l'accès des jeunes à la terre et aux ressources productives, étant donné que les mécanismes permettant aux jeunes d'accélérer ces actifs sont limités?
Who would like to respond first? Perhaps Johan.
Should I start?
Please.
Yes. I mean, working conditions in the agricultural sector is very hard. So in my home region, I'm coming from the outer northwest of Germany, which is a very rural region. And of course, when I was a young boy, I had to decide, do I want to work in the agricultural business, or do I want to do something else. So I decided to be a public administration officer then because of the conditions of the work in the agriculture sector. And I mean, the barriers in working in the agriculture sector is for young people even higher than for the elder ones. And we talked about the challenges in the discussion before, like having access to energy. It's like having access to whatever you need, like fertilizers and so on and so on. So it's very challenging, and that's, for a political approach, very complicated because a single intervention is not sufficient. You have to have a holistic approach on how to make sure that the working conditions for young people can be better in the agriculture sector, and that they are provided with all the things they need to boost up their business. So the BMZ is, my ministry is promoting the integrated agri-business hubs, and that's the main reason to run it and to make sure that young entrepreneurs are trained in this. And I mean, when I talk about barriers, and I would rather talk about all the opportunities you have in the agriculture sector, because you are an entrepreneur. You're not a person who is sitting in a bureau and has to do what others say him to have to do, but you're free in your decisions. There are lots of opportunities, but let's talk about barriers. The barriers are even higher for young, female and rural people. So the three things together, and that's, for example, the reason why we, in our ministry, foster the female incubation programs in several countries and try to make sure that there is gender equality all over the world, that we promote gender equality. And I mean, we are living in rough times in a political way now. It's not always possible to emphasize that gender equality is an important thing, and so I wanted to mention it with this question.
And I thank you for it, because it doesn't have much place in today's discourse. You're quite right. Juan, I'd love you to respond to what Hubert just had to ask.
The question was around land, primarily land and additional resources. I think I'll say something that has been said before. Youth have a bigger barrier in accessing finance, and obviously land has an asset price, so access to finance is important. But I think it's not only access to finance for startups, that could be farming startups or scaling up operations, it's also for commercial activities. The food supply chain has a lot of requirements of capital, a lot of working capital, and that working capital sometimes in the short term can be provided by the private sector as part of the value chain. But the longer term capital, I think that's where other actors need to work together, because it's not really the role of a private company, even of a commercial bank, as we heard before, they have barriers to that as well. Another thing that I think was mentioned as well before is risk. This is risk capital, even working capital is risk capital. I think many actors need to work together to find de-risking mechanisms or risk-sharing mechanisms so that the risk doesn't all fall on the youth, on the young farmer or the young entrepreneur. What I think is very important is you need to link access to land to a viable economic opportunity, right? You can have land, but if you don't run it well, if you don't do the right thing, it's not going to get you anywhere. So it's really important to link it to the full ecosystem and make sure that it's a viable commercial opportunity linked to the markets. And again, that's where we play a role, is really being able to link it to the markets. And the question of land, and this is probably more for governments to answer, but it's a very complicated question. Over the last decades, we have seen that generational succession leads to fracturing even more relatively small plots of land. So I think what's important is to attract and make agriculture sexy and rural environments sexy for young people, but for viable businesses. And there's a question of minimum land size that is very important in agriculture, and that's a complex topic that needs to be addressed, and probably more by policymakers than some of the other actors in the chain. But it's very critical. It's not only access to land, but it's the right amount of land so that you can prosper and thrive in that activity.
It's fascinating to hear you both, because of course your experience across all of these sectors is important I suppose, to you, as you are, where you are in your careers and the development of your companies and understanding priorities, but then there's also something for you to be learned from them. I'd love you to put questions now to our young entrepreneurs, and I'd love each of you to respond to the question. Perhaps yours first, Johan.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. I mean, you're not young persons, you're not entrepreneurs, but you're successful businessmen as well. And so I would like to ask you if there is an advice you could give to other young entrepreneurs, what is most helpful for them to build up their business and to run it and to employ people and so on and so on. So what are your advices?
Cecilia, what advice would you give?
Gracias. Yo diría, desde mi experiencia como mujer indígena emprendedora, diría a los jóvenes que creer en su capacidad, también no tener miedo a innovar o emprender, también buscar apoyo, programas de financiamiento y asesoría, también dificultades que en el camino, ser perseverantes en las dificultades que siempre en el camino pasa, enfrentarlo sin miedo. Diría también, para emprender se necesita mucha paciencia y compromiso con la comunidad y respeto por la tierra también, que es la base para desarrollo sostenible. Gracias.
No. Courage, first of all, determination afterwards. I'd love to put the same question to both of you, maybe Hubert.
Thank you. Déjà, j'ai été formé pour extraire de l'énergie du sous-sol, mais j'ai décidé d'en faire pousser à la surface avec des petits agriculteurs. Donc, si je devrais aller partager mon expérience avec mon propre parcours dans le domaine entrepreneurial, je mettrai l'accent sur 4 leçons. Premièrement, il faut partir du terrain, ne pas avoir une idée abstraite. Mon projet, il n'est pas né au bureau, mais il est né à côté des producteurs. Donc, il faut comprendre les contraintes, les sols dégradés, des mauvaises gestions des déchets, les coûts des engrais élevés, des aléas climatiques. Tout ceci a permis de mettre sur pied des solutions réelles, utiles. Donc, les jeunes ruraux, ne doivent pas prendre leur proximité avec le terrain comme un désavantage, mais ça doit être un avantage pour mieux comprendre les solutions qu'ils doivent proposer. Donc, deuxièmement, il faut créer de la valeur au-delà de la production. Donc, l'agriculture devient plus attractive, comme on l'a dit tout à l'heure, lorsqu'on allie plusieurs maillons de la chaîne, la production, la transformation, la commercialisation, et également le packaging. Donc, ceci nous a permis déjà d'améliorer les revenus et de rendre l'activité un peu plus durable. Donc, aller de la ferme au marché, ça change tout dans le quotidien de l'agriculteur. Et troisièmement, avancer avec des solutions simples et adaptées. Il n'est pas nécessaire de venir avec une idée ou des technologies qui sont très exigeantes, mais dans le cas de notre structure ou bien des activités que nous avons développées, nous avons mis sur pied un biofertilisant qui est très efficace, appelé Biofena, et également des pratiques agroécologiques pour permettre donc à ces agriculteurs de créer de l'impact au sein de leur communauté. Donc, l'innovation doit être accessible et compréhensible par tous les utilisateurs. Et enfin, ce que je dirais aux jeunes entrepreneurs, c'est que l'entrepreneuriat est un apprentissage continu. Donc, chaque pas compte et il faut commencer. Quand les jeunes transforment leur réalité locale en opportunité, ils deviennent des acteurs de transformation du système agroalimentaire. Merci.
Ah, merci Hubert, bravo. Sabrina, to you, the same question of what, from your experience and lessons learned along your way, you would tell someone else.
Sure. So I've tried to avoid repeating what my colleagues here said and my previous panelists. So for me, you should start small. And you should start with confidence. When I say start with confidence, it means you should know what are you doing, learn from the people in the field, even though if you have a background in agribusiness or agri-food or you studied that in the universities, you need to learn from the field. As well, that will help you also know why farmers aren't applying the new technologies, aren't applying the new innovative, because sometimes they aren't ignorant, but there is a problem that you should probably ask the right question to know how to solve. So this will make us go to my second advice, which is creating your purpose, creating your story and value, and this will start with working on your product before starting to commercialize about yourself or commercialize about your skills and knowledge. Work on your product and let your product promote for you. So this will help you as well. Consistency is the key. So you will always keep learning during your journey. Either you will learn technical skills, business skills, financial skills. Once you have the good product, it's now when you can approach VCs to ask for more money and be able to present something valuable to get money for. My third, and let's say last but not least, advice is to scale smart. Aim for the stars, because sometimes we aim like we see concurrent like enemies, which is not true. Like my last advice would be to try to do contract or try to have important client in the sector, to be able to not only work together, but at least fix the mistakes that have been done in the field. So for me, this is something important. We need to do the right change, the positive change from inside the system. We're not going to create the wheel. Like, let's continue to improve what's already existing.
In a collaborative way.
Exactly. So, and I wouldn't as well to add some point which has been mentioned in the previous panel. True, some countries, and it's not something that I've been facing in my country, because we already have some ecosystem that help entrepreneurs, de-risking support mechanism that help you to get loan with no guarantee, no interest, to improve your business. We as well have the possibility to have no taxes for agribusiness production. But the thing that I wanted to add, that definitely other countries are suffering, and other agribusiness in especially in African countries, are suffering to have access to natural resources, electricity, and other main important thing to the production. But things can be done in parallel, which means learning about agribusiness, agriculture 5.0, which is AI, technology, and data collection and data analysis, it's something important. So it's not, we're not gonna solve a problem and then go to another problem, because we don't have time. Climate change is working, he's doing his job to destroy even families' business. People who has been in people who were in the field from decades and are struggling doing agriculture in those times. So technologies, new technology, and high technologies are the solution. So everyone should learn and everyone should adapt to what's already proposed in the market.
And embrace them, Sabrina, urgently. I'd love your question, Juan, to our young panelists.
Yes, thank you for mentioning what you just mentioned about the digital aspect, because we haven't mentioned it enough. And I think it's very obvious that agriculture and rural communities have a great opportunity to reach higher levels of digitalization. And obviously youth are very critical to that journey. because obviously the adoption is higher, it's easier to understand, etc. So it's good to mention it again. I want to ask a little bit of a selfish question. I think we've spoken a lot about the barriers to starting entrepreneurial activities. I think the last question was a bit more about the startup phase and the barriers to the startup phase. I wanted to ask, once all of you three have your entrepreneurships, what are the barriers to scale? But the selfish part of the question is, how do you think the private sector can help in overcoming those barriers?
Okay, great question. Maybe Hubert first to that, the question of the private sector.
Merci.
Merci. Déjà, ce que je vais ajouter, c'est que la mise en échelle des structures des jeunes est souvent très compliquée, particulièrement les structures du secteur vert comme notre structure où nous produisons des bio-intrants. Et on se heurte généralement à 3 catégories d'obstacles. Et tout ceci reflète effectivement les réalités structurelles auxquelles tous les autres jeunes entrepreneurs qui démarrent leur activité font face. Donc, comme premier obstacle, nous avons le financement adapté. Les solutions comme le biophénat ont un impact environnemental et social, mais sont souvent, je vais dire, très petites ou bien ne sont pas adaptées au financement classique. Donc, les jeunes entrepreneurs font face également aux exigences de garantie, comme on a dit au premier panel tout à l'heure, alors que nous n'avons pas des actifs, mais nous avons plutôt la connaissance, nous avons le savoir-faire, l'innovation et l'impact local. Mais ce que je pense du gouvernement et des secteurs privés, ils peuvent également développer des mécanismes de financement adaptés, entre autres des prêts d'honneur ou bien des fonds à capital risque. Deuxièmement, nous avons comme obstacle le passage de l'expérimentation à l'échelle, parce qu'aujourd'hui, c'est ce que nous vivons. Notre produit, il fonctionne, mais pour passer à l'échelle, nous avons besoin des unités de production bien structurées, une réglementation bien accompagnée, des normes et un accompagnement technique clair. Donc, pour cela, ici, le rôle du pouvoir public est de créer un cadre réglementaire proportionné à l'activité et celui du secteur privé d'apporter l'expertise du partenariat et le débouché de marché. Donc, un troisième et dernier obstacle, c'est l'accès au marché. Donc, nous, aujourd'hui, nous produisons, mais nous n'avons pas de débouché. Par contre, je suis convaincu que le gouvernement et les gouvernements et les secteurs privés peuvent faciliter la mise en relation avec les acheteurs, des coopératives et également des chaînes de valeur organisées. Donc, cela pourrait être essentiel pour sécuriser la croissance de notre entreprise. Donc, pour conclure, je dirais que la mise en échelle des solutions des jeunes n'est pas un défi individuel, c'est un enjeu du système. Et quand les cadres, le financement et les partenariats sont alignés, les jeunes entrepreneurs peuvent transformer leur impact local en impact structurel. Merci.
Fascinant. Et Cecilia, to you, then that same question of Juan's, the question of private sector and the difference the private sector, the role it needs to play, not just in allowing young people to create, but then to sustain and scale up their companies. What are the crucial things?
Ya. Para el sector privado, lo que buscamos de ellos es, pueden contribuir a través de transferencias tecnológicas y también alianzas comerciales justas, apertura cadena de valor responsable, que también que reconozcan los valores, la producción indígena. Y también sería como en mi organización siempre hemos tenido ese tipo de problemas porque en la actualidad nosotros, la Organización Bosque de las Nubes no cuenta con una planta, para procesar nosotras mismas. Entonces tenemos un convenio con una empresa que procesa ese tipo de productos. Entonces la ganancia va casi 30% de ellos también, porque así dice el convenio. Entonces hay siempre ese tipo de problemas, obstáculos para tener más ingresos. Se necesita contar con una infraestructura productiva y logística, ¿no? Gracias.
Okay, fascinating. Sabrina, similar question, same question.
Yeah, sure. So to answer your question about the obstacles that we're facing in our businesses and how the government or the higher authorities can maybe manage to fix those type, because I'm not going to as well mention all my colleagues present, because even though we're from different countries, we mainly share the same problem for some of those problems. But I would start with the access to land. Even though some countries has the mechanism to offer lands for agricultural and agribusiness, but it's sometimes either inaccessible or unreachable due to the files that you need to submit to get those type of assets. I think for this one, government should start thinking about the regulation and the rules that apply to larger scale companies or industrial farms and the SMEs in the field, because we don't came from the same, we don't have the same power, and we don't have the same possibility to invest money and time to get to show you or to prove that we are able to manage those type of lands. The second thing, it will be definitely maybe the majority in this room won't relate to it, but it's a problem that already exists. There's no difference between a company or enterprise, agribusiness funded by a man or a woman. And even regulation and policies doesn't make the difference, but you can notice the difference in the field, because sometimes either it's cultural or traditional behavior. Even if it's indirect, you can feel the difference between the behavior. So men aren't doing a business and women are just playing or having fun, making a project. It's mainly the same thing, and we face the same risks. So with this, I will end my last obstacle by trying to address to governors and decision makers to not try to look to those young entrepreneurs as people who are aiming for AIDS. They are people who are capable of creating jobs. They are economic engines. So the moment that everyone starts to look at them as partners to the economy, even if at a small scales, so at this time, everyone can scale as much as your vision, or can be able to create a job and value chain in this system. Yeah.
So very briefly from both of you, because we've heard from the coalface, as it were, some of these challenges, some of the things that would help them continue or scale up or move on from the startup. How useful is it to both of you? What does it allow you then to do? Perhaps you first, Johan first.
What is it? What?
This, when you hear this, what does it inspire in you?
I was totally flashed in. We are motors of the business, and I mean, for me, it's the biggest task is to do advertising for letting young people being engaged in the business sector in my own country, of course, but from a global perspective as well. And of course, I know all about the hurdles of gender equality, and especially when it comes to run a business. And I saw so much examples. So my main clue out of this discussion is to foster my advertising for engaging young people, especially women.
one similar, your response.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting, although part of the answer was not about the private sector, which is why I was being selfish, but I'll use the word that was used before, it's ecosystems. Rural communities are ecosystems where different people play a role and different organizations play a role. And what I take out of this, and I think her example of the outsourced processing that you have to do, that takes a lot of your profit. The takeaway for me is in the communities where we operate, we're present in many countries, in many rural areas. It shouldn't be too big of an effort to really embed ourselves with the youth in that community to support youth-led enterprises. Maybe it goes with the mentorship, but it really goes with being a part of that ecosystem. And I will find out how much of that we do. Obviously, we have pockets of doing that and promoting youth-led entrepreneurships. But as part of the ecosystem, it shouldn't be that difficult to do it everywhere. So that's
Absolutely.
kind of my take.
Juan and Johan, I'd love to thank you both the private sector, also what states are doing, to thank you for your insights and for being on the panel today. Thank you. And I'm going to invite you both to leave the stage, and you will all stay. I'd love to invite our other youth leaders to come back. Let's take a... Thank you so much. Thank you. We will... Thank you so much. Juan, it was lovely. Thank you. We will... I'd like to call all of our youth leaders back to the stage. I was telling you earlier on at the start of the session that there had been this consultation process, and what emerged from it were a number of calls to action that you're going to hear about today. We're also then going to have the opportunity to hear from the floor in the shape of statements, in the shape of questions that you may have for these young business leaders today. First of all, though, I'd love to hear from each of you. And again, this was a consultative process. You were all together. Do please take a seat. You were all at this consultation workshop. These call to actions are the fruit of that conversation. Perhaps, maybe we can sit down, we'll have a chair. Perhaps, Lakmini, I will get you to start with your call to action. She has no. Let's start with you, please, if you would. Tell us the call to action that emerged for you from the session, the workshop. Yes, please.
Priority Area 1, decent employment and opportunities in agri-food systems. IFAD and its member states should promote youth-centered apprenticeship and placement programs across agri-food value chains that deliver decent employment opportunities. These programs should be co-designed with youth networks, employers, and training providers, and ensure inclusive outreach, particularly in underserved rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mamadou Diop, if you would be next. At the lectern. On vous écoute. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Mamadou Diop du Sénégal. Appel prioritaire numéro 5 qui revient à numéro 2, tellement que c'est important. Capacité d'action, représentation et influence politique des jeunes. Soutenir l'expansion des alliances de jeunes ruraux au niveau national et local en s'appuyant sur les modèles du FIDA et veiller à ce qu'elles aient les capacités, les ressources, la reconnaissance et la marge de manœuvre requise pour participer activement à la co-création des politiques nationales qui ont une influence sur leurs moyens de subsistance, devant prévoir des mécanismes de responsabilité pour que les délibérations soient suivies d'effet. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Mamadou. Merci. Sarah.
Buenas tardes, muchas gracias. Sara Pérez, República Dominicana. Tercera llamada a la acción. el espíritu empresarial de la gente jóvenes, finanzas y ecosistemas. Crear oportunidades especiales de financiamiento que estén combinados y ampliados su escala con el propósito de generar incentivos para las empresas agroalimentarias dirigidas por gente joven en los medios rurales y reducir el riesgo asociados y conjugados a la financiación en condiciones favorables, con garantías e inversión comercial, vinculando esas oportunidades con incubadoras y aceleradoras de empresas que refuercen la alfabetización financiera y las capacidades empresariales, las mentorías y el acceso a los mercados nacionales e internacionales. Muchas gracias.
Bravo. Please, donc, next, if we could have Hubert, please, next. Thank you.
Priorité numéro 4, compétences, innovation et transition numérique. Concevoir des programmes de formation fondés sur les compétences conjointement avec les organisations jeunes, des employeurs et des parcours de travail, études débouchant directement sur des possibilités d'emploi et entrepreneuriat pour les jeunes, garantissant l'acquisition des compétences utiles sur le marché. L'accès élargi des solutions numériques doit aller de pair avec la promotion des opportunités d'emploi, l'offre de renforcement des capacités et l'augmentation de la productivité agricole et non agricole. Je vous remercie.
Bravo. And to Sabrina next.
So for priority area number 3, access to land, resources, asset, and infrastructure. Increase investment in shared infrastructure hubs, including processing facilities, cold storage, irrigation systems, digital connectivities, and transport designed to be accessible, affordable, and safe and usable by young rural entrepreneurs. Those investments should be implemented alongside young and women-friendly land access arrangement and clear governance framework to provide security and use the enable long-term investment. Thank you.
Cecilia, please.
Hola, sexta llamada en acción. Resiliencia climática, sostenibilidad e innovación impulsada por la gente joven. Apoyar a las empresas de personas jóvenes basadas en el clima y la naturaleza. Por ejemplo, de agricultura regenerativa, energías renovables de los sistemas alimentarios y valoración de residuos renovables del sistema. Vías para ampliar su escala mediante el establecimiento de asociaciones públicos, privadas, conexiones con los mercados y políticas de incentivación. Todo ello para crear vínculos entre las soluciones impulsadas por la juventud y la transformación nacional de los sistemas alimentarios. Para lograr, será esencial movilizar financiación para el clima que quede al alcance de la gente joven. Por ejemplo, microseguros, créditos de adaptación y donación para la innovación juvenil. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. So, as you've heard there from all of them, some really strong calls to action. And again, this comes back from the session that reflects the views of the 50 or so young business leaders that gathered last month to figure out what it is that they needed. I would love to know if there are any questions from the governors to any of our young leaders about their experiences, about anything that you've heard so far. I think one of the main takeaways is how, as varied as your experiences in particular business and locations of work are, that so many of the problematics that you've faced and the hurdles that you've overcome and the challenges that you've seen go past are similar. And so it's been fascinating to be able to hear each of you not just express some of that, but move the thing forward by explaining what it is you need more of. And I can't thank you enough for sharing all of your experiences with us. And I would just add that if you wanted one-on-one chats with any of them, they're going to be in the Entrepreneurs Cafe from 1:30 to 2:30, and do feel free to come along and have a chat. I've certainly found it inspiring to hear from you all and to meet you all. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're going to have a photograph before. And those who will join us from there, please. I will stand with you. Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you.